California. But now, the FBI has turned up thousands of kilometers away in West Africa on the streets of Ghana, because Washington believes the next major security battle may not be inside the United States, but along the Atlantic coast of Africa. Reports say the Ghana Police Service has launched a new intelligence-led policing initiative in partnership with the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation. According to the U.S. Embassy in Accra, a specialized team of FBI instructors is on the ground training Ghanaian officers to counter transnational criminal organizations and violent terrorist networks. Now, the 10-day program focuses on intelligence gathering, undercover operations, threat identification, and proactive crime prevention.
All right. Welcome to This Week in Ghana, your bi-weekly live stream where we talk about all things news related to Ghana. If you guys can hear me, give me a thumbs up. And if you guys can see me, give me a thumbs up. Yes, I think there are a lot of reactions to what you just saw. You heard that right. FBI on its way to Ghana. 10-day exercise. We will give you guys more in a moment. But before we get into this story and more, let me introduce myself. I'm Joe Hotagua. I'm the founder of Authentic African. What we do is we help people visit, move, and invest in Africa. We do live streams every week where we talk about specific countries and we talk about the continent as a whole. On Thursdays, we talk about the continent as a whole. On Mondays, every other week, we talk about Ghana in particular. We also have a contest to help people go to Ghana this December. So lots of questions that people have about the FBI in Ghana. So, but before we get into that, let me actually talk about the rest of the stories that we'll be going over today. So you guys are aware, we will be talking about Ghana signing a deal with the UK on a growth partnership deal. It's supposed to address education and job creation. There's also going to be some talk about the national football team of Ghana arriving in the United States. And then we have some more details and questions to answer about the winter trip to Ghana that I've been partnering with Ito on. It looks like a lot of people are interested in this conversation. So without further ado, let's get into it. So a couple quick things that I want to say before I get back into this video. As you saw, the FBI has expanded its presence in Ghana as Washington moves to what they say contain rising instability across West Africa. So in partnership with the Ghana Police Service, American instructors are training officers in intelligence gathering, undercover operations, and what they're calling counterterrorism tactics. The initiative comes amid growing fears that there are jihadist violence from the Sahel could potentially spread south into Ghana and other countries as well. Ghana is facing mounting scrutiny over the drug trafficking routes linked to Latin America, cocaine networks. And so apparently this is meant to curb that. I think there are a lot of people that are concerned with this, but before we get into the concerns and before we hear from you all, definitely let me know in the comments what you guys feel about this. I do want to play some more of this news story because many of you probably were not aware from First Post Africa, and then we will have some commentary on the other side. I will say generally we do this live stream with Ivy Prosper. She is covering the World Cup today in Toronto, if I'm not mistaken, so she's unable to join, but she will be back for next live stream. But today you got me, and we have a lot to cover, so let's get into it. So let's get this back up on screen, and let's go.
The training provides real-world law enforcement tools that protect lives and national security. A secure and stable environment promotes economic growth and creates conditions where citizens and businesses can thrive.
But make no mistake, this is not just a routine exercise. The entire security map of West Africa is shifting. After military coups in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, the Sahel has become home to one of the world's fastest growing terrorist networks. Groups linked to Al-Qaeda including JNIM, have expanded their operations across large parts of the region. And now, Washington fears that instability could spread south toward coastal West Africa. Countries like Ghana, Benin, Togo, and Ivory Coast are increasingly being viewed as the next frontline buffer states. But the threat is not just terrorism. It is also organized crime. Security officials say that West Africa is becoming a major transit corridor for Latin American cocaine heading to Europe. And Ghana has emerged as one of the region's most important logistical hubs. Drug trafficking networks are reportedly using the Gulf of Guinea to move large shipments through West African ports. Ports like Tema and Takoradi in Ghana have come under growing scrutiny. Just last year, Ghanaian authorities reportedly seized more than 3 tons of cocaine hidden under sand inside a truck moving from Takoradi to Accra. Now, this is where the drug trafficking intersects with the terrorist groups in the Sahel. Once the drugs move inland, trafficking routes pass through transit hubs and territories controlled by the Sahelian terrorist networks. Analysts say that these networks reportedly tax the shipment of drugs, which in turn is used to fund their insurgencies across the region.
All right, guys, there's a lot there and a lot to cover. So before we even dive into that and my thoughts, I do want to acknowledge some of the folks in the chat. There's a lot of people who have a lot of opinions and thoughts on this. So let me just acknowledge some of the folks from Instagram. You know, some people have said what they said. You know, Poppy Pop 56 says what he says there. He said what he said. The African Chronicle says, why African Libyans keep going back to the USA while this country has no interest but to, what he says is steal from us. Aren't we tired of this BS? And this is what Barbara said. What the actual, and Eleanor says this. So my thoughts. Because I think, you know, we've been having this conversation for some time now. And it's one of those where we have to talk about it holistically. There are a lot of things that I see going on in Ghana that I definitely applaud, right? When you had this situation going on with South Africa, repatriating those 300 plus folks, you know, helping them with a pathway to a new career and focus back in their home country, working on potentially housing for those who don't have it, mental health resources, etc. I think those were all really good initiatives for those folks. Other initiatives around paying off the electrical debt and getting out of the IMF debt trap and some other things, right, that you see this administration has done a great job with. I think that many people who are watching this live stream are confused by deals like this. And here's why. For the past however many years, these kinds of programs had been in place throughout the Sahel, for example. French troops, sometimes American troops, sometimes German troops, etc., had been in country, and their goal had been to stop these jihadist attacks in these jihadist groups, and has been with no success. Where they've been having success is after the military leaders took over these countries, specifically Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, they've been able to have more success with that leadership in place. This is after kicking out many of the troops from the Western troops. So I think a lot of people are looking at this and wondering, why isn't Ghana doing security pacts and security deals with Burkina Faso, for example, which is the neighboring country to the north, Mali and Niger, as opposed to with the West? I think the intelligence sharing should probably be with the two countries that border each other and that have these insurgent groups that are kind of in those regions. And I don't know if there are more security pacts happening between these two groups. I mean, we know that, Burkina Faso and Ghana signed 7 deals earlier this year, and part of that was a security deal. But I think it does confuse many people who really were excited about the direction that Ghana was going in, to see them operate this way with the United States. And I think one of the things that people are alluding to in the comments and are actually saying in the comments is there's a lot of suspicion around what Western troops are doing in West Africa. There are a lot of questions about whether or not they are there on behalf of helping West Africans, or are they there in furtherance of surveilling the Sahel region, surveilling the AES, meaning Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, with groups and troops on the ground in neighboring countries to the Sahel. It allows for intelligence, drones, people to move back and forth between the countries and to be able to capture intel. And I think that is what many people are alluding to in the comments. And I think that is why we have such a visceral response to this particular deal that Ghana has done with the United States. And this particular administration, I think, can be a polarizing one in the United States for sure, and specifically around their interest in Africa in general. So I will leave it at that in terms of my thoughts. I definitely want to hear from you all, though. So what else do we have from IG here? So we have a couple of folks saying Ghana doesn't need America on their soil. America must go. Ghana, wake up. That was from Darko Steve. What else do we have? We want to hear from you guys. So let us know in the comments how you feel about this particular deal. It's a 10-day exercise as it's been advertised. I don't think very many people believe that. So, but that is how it's been expressed publicly. What else are people saying? People are saying, I'm from Louisiana. Oh, okay. That's just random. OG Mike says, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't believe it. There are a number of people who are just saying, I don't believe this. Kobe Samuel says there are nuances to this. Let's not conclude. Ghana knows what he's doing. Do you guys agree with that comment from Kobe Samuel? Kobe's obviously Ghanaian, based on the name, I presume. Do you agree with that? In the Wind says, you are brave. I am just reporting the news. Just reporting the news, guys. DC says, the terrorist talking point is subterfuge and has operatives playing their roles. Typical, predictable storyline. Who has the love for the Sahel countries? Wake Up Africa, an attack on one is the precursor to an eventual attack on all soon thereafter. Snap out of it. That's from DC. The African Chronicles says, give the president of Ghana this book, The Art of War by Sun Tzu. And Miss Charlie says they are boxing in the Sahel region. And by the way, you guys are not alone in these sentiments. I think a lot of people are skeptical about the West in West Africa in this way. But I have to say to all of you who are watching, and this is one of the reasons why we do this live stream, we report on this news because we want people to know what's happening in the countries that we are all promoting to you all as places to vacation, to invest, potentially even look for relocation. If you want to see something different, you have to build something different. And so we need to work with locals, with other diaspora, to build an ecosystem where there isn't a need for Africans to rely so heavily on the West for things, infrastructure, security, etc. That is why we do this. That's why. So my goal is to get this information out to you all, and then for you all and for us to work together collectively to change and to shift how things have been happening, because everyone else is benefiting and coming to the continent besides us in the diaspora, our people, everyone but us. So Afia Warner says, just joined. What did I miss? On vacation in the gorgeous Caribbean, but still conscious of this president's agenda for Africa. So what you missed is basically, and for those of you who are just joining, here's the long and short of it. The Trump administration has expanded its presence in Ghana, as Washington says they're moving to contain rising instability across West Africa. So the FBI has actually sent a group of folks out to work with Ghanaian police around a number of different things. They said for the initiative to quell some of these jihadist regimes. So I'll continue to take comments on this particular story as we go throughout. There are a couple more stories that I want to cover. We are not done on partnerships with the West. One more comment here from YouTube. Awelio says, why would Ghana have anything to do with the U.S., given everything going on there? Surely the FBI needs to first invest in the social order security of the U.S. in the first instance. That's an interesting point from Awelio. The Africa Chronicle says, would you mind opening the line to have a live exchange with you? The Africa Chronicles. I always have to be careful with having a live exchange with folks on these live streams. Because I can't curate what people say, I cannot always have people on. Here's what we could do with the Africa Chronicles. What I'd like to do is let's have you on at a separate time. Let's have a conversation first before we bring you on. So shoot me out a DM first before we bring you on as a guest. I would like to talk to you first before we do that. For these live streams, we're very careful to do that because of what can be said and what has been done to penalize platforms like this. I'm very careful with my speech and very careful how I handle this and share information with you all, because something that someone else can say can completely remove this platform. And then you guys we no longer have this. And that's what happened with African Stream. And they're back with Sovereign Media. Well, not they are back, but Sovereign Media is attempting to do something similar. But we just want to make sure we don't have this situation where we lose this platform and I can't even share this with you guys anymore. So absolutely shoot me a DM and let's talk. We'll definitely talk about having you on as a guest in the future. Afuya says, what else do we need to know about our open enemies? There you go. And okay, you got my note, African Chronicles. Okay, great. Okay. Any other comments from Instagram that I'm missing about this particular story? Africa needs nothing from the US, France, and I think that's Germany. They placed the ingredients, caused the problems, fixed the problem. That is from Jasmine Clark. Ollie Conley says, jealousy. American always wants to be in somebody's business. That's what Ollie Conley says. Okay. You guys are very active today. I see this story has really stirred up some feelings for folks, and understandably so. I think this is one of those things that people are very confused about, and I understand completely why. So Afuya says military preparedness is the key. Military preparedness, education. Look, we live in a capitalistic society. And so, also in this world, capitalism rules all. One of the things that I do think we should not ignore from the story that you just heard was this. Let's not get away from the fact that they mentioned the transatlantic drug trade that is coming through West Africa, making its way to Europe, and many times that is funding some of these groups. And so there are people who are in positions of power across the Gulf of Guinea, which that's not speaking specifically to Guinea. The Gulf of Guinea is basically that whole Gulf of all the West African countries. There are people that are allowing this to come through. There are people who are allowing money to come through. You cannot have money come in and out of a country without someone being involved in that process. Is it cash? Is it transactions through cards? Is it crypto payments? The ability to stop this is there. Is the want to stop it there? Are too many people making too much money from the drug trade through West Africa to stop it? That's a question we should be asking ourselves, right? Would there be a need for Ghana, or anyone for that matter, to be going to the US or previously Europe, or others to go to Russia and China for military training and operations if these jihadist groups weren't getting paid, and if others weren't getting paid through the drug trade that is coming through West Africa? So we also do need to face that very true fact that it is happening. And if you need any evidence of that, next time you're in West Africa, you go to a nightclub and you'll start to see people with cash on cash. And, you see folks with chains on, etc. And those aren't even the ones who make the most money. There are others who are hiding in the shadows, happen to be in positions of political power, who dress in suits every day, and, who say they have legitimate businesses, and they also are profiting and benefiting from the drug trade. Let's also talk about the fact that there are laundering organizations that launder money as well. So all of that, I think, needs to be addressed. And I think you can address that mainly by offering alternative means of income for people. You can't change all of it right away. There's just no way to do that. But the more options that people have, the less they choose these kinds of routes. And so that's why I think it's important to share this. Afuya says, bogus. Who are the people indulging in the so-called drug trade? It's really called the European drug trade. Exactly. However, it does come through West Africa, and people in West Africa are getting paid. It only gets to Europe through West Africa. So there is a piece of this that we have to acknowledge in terms of what needs to be done. And my solution is offering alternative means of income for people. That's the solution I present. And by trying to get people such as yourselves watching this live stream to start to think about diversifying your assets, your interests, your businesses. You have businesses and skills that can be brought to the continent. We can all learn, grow, and flourish together and begin to solve challenges like this. If you guys aren't happy with what you're seeing, we got to do something about it. And, for those of you who think means beyond capitalistic are going to be ones that work, I think not. I think, we live in a capitalistic society and we're going to need solutions. Well, there are many solutions. Let me just say that. My solution, I believe, is one through commerce and capital. I think that's going to be what helps. All right. So we spent a good amount of time on this story. I do want to move on to the next one. And this is another one that is going to confuse some folks. Once again, we have another story here. And So Ghana and the United Kingdom on Monday signed what is being called a landmark UK-Ghana partnership, which is quote unquote to help transform the economy. They also say it's supposed to create thousands of opportunities for the people. I'm going to play this video from Africa News, and then I'd love to hear from you guys on this story as well, and then I'll have some commentary on the other side.
Ghana and the United Kingdom signed on Monday the landmark UK-Ghana partnership, which is to help transform the economy and create thousands of opportunities for people. The deal, worth £215 million, was signed by the British High Commissioner to Ghana, Christian Rogue, and his counterpart Saba Zita Benson, who is Ghana's High Commissioner to the UK, during the Ghana-UK Investment Summit in London on Monday. It targets 4 main areas that include delivering world-class education, enabling easier trade for Ghanaian businesses, attracting private investment, and driving industrial growth. Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama said at the summit that Ghana was on the right path to restoring the economy.
So one of the pillars of the president of Ghana's initiatives has been on restoring the economy, right? That's been a conversation for a while since, he's come back into office. And I think, as you can see, he's done an excellent job, at least in terms of that. Inflation is slowed. The power of the Ghanaian cedi has increased. However, there are deals like this that puzzle folks. The details of this deal, I think, are still to be determined. Let me see if I can get you guys some more insight into what is actually happening as part of this deal. But I'd love to hear from you guys on the deal itself, because I know there have been a lot of questions on this deal and what it means. So I'll give you guys a little bit of headlines, right? So the partnership channels funding and expertise in what they're calling 4 primary operational areas. The first is what they're calling delivering world-class education and advanced technical training. I don't know what that means, but that's what they're saying. They also said enabling easier trade to expand market entry for Ghana businesses. So that means for businesses in Ghana to the UK, I think, and vice versa. Attracting private investment and mobilizing global capital. They said also driving industrial growth and infrastructure transformation. So here are the key initiatives and what the financial breakdown is. So the agreement funds practical infrastructure, according to them, science and education projects designed to deliver immediate economic benefits. So you guys let me know what you guys think of this, but here's what the expectation is. There's a Takoradi floating dock project. It's 101 million euros. It's supposed to generate up to 430 direct skilled jobs with 30% reserved for women by developing the Gulf of Guinea's first commercial scale ship repair facility. So basically in Takoradi, which is one of the major cities in Ghana, they're planning to build a floating dock, and that is meant to be able to repair large ships. They also have the London Stock Exchange Reforestation Fund, which is an 85 million pound investment that launches as what they call a dark green investment fund listed on the London Stock Exchange to channel international capital into high integrity carbon and reforestation projects, creating rural jobs. Science, tech, and artificial intelligence, that's about 6 million pounds. Implements Ghana's AI strategy and funds 10 new physics partnerships to foster advanced collaboration across universities. Next is climate-aligned infrastructure. That's 5 million pounds. That creates the Green Project Preparation Facility to transfer sustainable ideas into investable deals, aiming to unlock 180 million over 3 years. Transformational education guidelines set clear rules for institutions to establish a joint UK-Ghana academic programs. There's also specialist clinical engineering training, that's 4 million, and forestry livelihoods backs the Rainforest Builder Project, which is 9 million pounds to restore degraded forests in the OT region. So from the top line, what do you guys think about that deal? Obviously, there was some very specific things that they talked about in terms of getting new jobs, etc. I think the question, some of them even being set aside for women. So there seems to be potentially a benefit to Ghana in this quote unquote deal. The African Chronicle says the deal is simply this: the empire does not want to die. Okay. Afuya says, it's mind-boggling that Africa hasn't learned from the history of the transatlantic enslavement trade. What has changed for the descendants of this trade? Britain has not forgotten. Why did Britain abstain? And this is from, by the way, the question is, why did Britain abstain? This is referencing the UN vote on the gravest crime against humanity being the transatlantic slave trade. All of the EU and Britain abstained from voting. So if we are saying, be careful, Britain seems to have selective memory when it comes to the transatlantic slave trade. So that's what if we are saying. What do we have in Instagram on this particular topic? I want to hear from you guys. What does the West expect in return for the proposed services they will provide? I get it, but what are they asking for Ghana in return? That's been the main sentiment as people are asking. Kobe's asking that. Alma Watson is asking that question. Darko Steve is saying, if our leaders are still believing in America after orchestrating a coup in 1966, which we're still feeling the effects, then there's something wrong with us. Speaking of the overthrow of Kwame Nkrumah, the first democratically elected prime minister and president of the country of Ghana. Changed the name from Gold Coast to Ghana based on the Ghana Empire. He was an HBCU graduate from the United States. Very big Pan-Africanist, and really built the country in that image. Really was unfortunate what has been concluded that the CIA did to remove him from office while he was out of the country. What else are people saying? Believe it or not, Britain ended slavery. Africa still has slavery today. This is what Spencer is saying. Yeah, sure. They ended their own version of it, but they didn't end slavery. They ended their own version of slavery. And yes, they were the first to end something that they were the first to start. One of the first to start. Let me elaborate with the empire that does not want to die. Europe and most generally the West are desperate. They need our natural resources. They need our workforce. Spencer saying expand on that. Expand on what? They stopped their own version of it, but it still exists, of course, in many ways. And yeah, when I say one of the first, I mean one of the first in Europe. Yes, the Islamic slave trade happened across the continent as well, mostly East Africa. West Africa was mostly the Europeans. East Africa and North Africa was mostly the Muslims, the Arab nations, some Arab nations, I would say. It's actually certain nations, we don't want to do it based on a religion because there are many people who follow specific religions. Let's just say it was certain nations. We don't say Christians, we say Arab nations. So we shouldn't say Muslims, we should say the nations who did it, right? So let's be very deliberate in our communication of this. But yes, there were some Arab nations that did take part and really start a lot of the slave trade that happened on the continent in different ways, right? Like bringing them outside of the continent, right? So yes, there are always versions of different, and slave trade, and let's be clear too, right? When we're talking about conquering a group and sometimes taking on some people, there weren't jails at that time, right? So many times people who had committed crimes against large groups of people, humanity, whatever, many times that was when they were taken into servitude. Many times could be called slavery. So let's be very clear when we talk about Africans having slaves, it was a very different context, and it was very different than the way trading happened during the transatlantic slave trade. And yes, there were many groups involved. and many Africans involved in the transatlantic slave trade. But remember who was the most involved and who were the largest beneficiaries and who kept it going the longest and who did it across the most people, right? Is who we're talking about. There are always, anytime you have a crime against humanity, there are going to be some people who fall under the group of people who the crime is getting committed against, who are going to participate in the crimes against their own people. That's just how it works. There's always a small group of people, but that doesn't define who did it. It's defined by the people who are actually committing the grave crime against humanity. You are going to have people, though, from time to time who fall under that group of subjugated who are going to take part in it. That is just how it works with any large, massive crime against humanity. So Millie says, keep them out, let Africa develop at their own pace. And Afuya says, look up the doctrine of discovery. Spencer, you speak specifically to what you want to talk about here. Maybe consider the discussion on that topic. Yeah, so there'll probably be a discussion on the topic, because if we want to do a deeper dive into that, today's conversation is supposed to be about news in Ghana. So we don't want to get too far down a rabbit hole on any specific topic that people are trying to cover that has nothing to do with the topic of the day today. And I see we're losing a lot of people because we've gone down this rabbit hole. So let's stick to the script and focus on what people came here to hear about, and that is specifically the news of the day. So a couple more conversations, or a couple more stories that we want to cover today. In the interest of time, we are running low on time, so let's get back to it. So obviously the World Cup is happening in North America. Ghana's national football team, the Black Stars, were greeted by roaring fans and their arrival in New England for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. We're going to play a little bit of footage from SABC News, where they covered a little bit of this in their work recently. So let me get them on stage here.
Ghana arrived in Providence, Rhode Island, to start the final preparations for their World Cup campaign. The Black Stars wrapped up a week of training in Washington, following an international friendly against Wales in Cardiff. The squad features the likes of Captain Jordan Ayew and Manchester City's Antoine Semenyo. Ghana will head to Toronto, where they will face Panama on Wednesday. They will also take on England and Croatia in the group stage. Meanwhile, the Democratic Republic of Congo arrived in Houston.
Okay, we'll leave it there. I just thought it was interesting to share that really quickly. You know, I don't know how many of you actually watched the World Cup, but Ghana has made it through and they will be participating. So we will be paying close attention and keeping you guys posted on how things went with them. All right. Now, it has been wide-ranging conversation, and I appreciate all of the engagement early on in this discussion. Look, there's a lot of people who have a lot of thoughts about a lot of the things that we've talked about today. And I, in the interest of time, cannot go down a rabbit hole speaking specifically to this thing. Okay, so before we move on to the last story, maybe it's just me, but I would boycott this competition. I'm not watching. I refuse to do so. Please elaborate. I'd love to hear why you feel that way. I'd love to hear why from you, the African Chronicles, why you want to boycott the World Cup. And if anybody else agrees with that, we'd love to hear from you guys. And let's see if there's any other comments on this in particular. Okay, so all right, so really quickly, the last thing I want to do here with the last few minutes here And then if anybody has any more comments about the stories that we covered today, not focusing on rabbit holes, because we've gone down too many rabbit holes and we've lost a bunch of people from the live stream because we've gone down rabbit holes. And, you know, I let one of our users distract me and go down a rabbit hole on a specific topic. We're going to focus on the topics of the day. We'll do a whole conversation. If we want to have a conversation about the transatlantic slave trade and all of that, we could do that on another day. This is supposed to be about the news of the day in Ghana, right? So specifically, let's talk about, you know, the contest that I partnered with Ito on. So if you guys might remember, last week we did 2 different live streams. On Monday, we announced it. And on Thursday, we discussed it even more. We did a Q&A. And so, you know, as you guys know, we have launched this trip to Ghana. And, you know, this is something that for those of us who watch these live streams and who would really like to visit West Africa, don't have a budget, haven't really thought through how much it's going to cost, don't know what to do, don't know where to go. There are a lot of questions that come to my inbox about these things. You know, I spend a significant amount of time communicating with folks around their questions on what they should be doing in Africa. What country should they go to? Where should they be going in that country? What should they do when they get there? And so I partnered with Ito to bring this trip to Ghana, which is something that, you know, I've never done before, but Ito did last year. And I happened to be a part of it because I went and met with their winner last year. So Tamara, who I will be interviewing very shortly, Tamara was the winner last year, and she got a chance to go to Ghana for the first time in her life, and she had an amazing experience. Picked up from the airport, hotel is included, your flight is included from the nearest international airport. This is really the opportunity to get a chance to set your foot on the ground and really see what the country has to offer, at least Accra, for some period of time. So as you can see from this website, you can enter for your chance to win. There's a free entry you can do by mail. If you shoot a letter to this address here. And there are also other ways to pay. So you can also increase your chances of winning by different number of entries. So for just $4, you get 3 entries. For $20, you get 15 entries. For $50, you get 50 entries. So it's basically $1 per entry once you get to the higher numbers, right? So open an entrance from anywhere in the world. You must have a valid passport, of course. You need to make sure that you get a visa to come to the country. That also has to be done. The competition actually closes in a little over 1 month, and the winners are going to be announced with every milestone. We are on our way to trying to get to 3,000 to add new winners to this particular this year's event. Sorry. And there are more every year. So we're planning to do this every year. So if you guys are interested, go to ito.authenticafrican.com. Link is in the description. It's spelled up here on screen. I'm pretty sure you guys can't even see it. This is the competition page. All the videos are here. We're going to add my video that I did last week when I was in Ghana. I just shot a video while I was there last week to announce the partnership. But as you watch along here, you can see what the experience was like. Welcome. I can't turn off the sound, unfortunately. Here, yes, I can. So you can see what the experience looked like on the ground. You know, this was the winter holiday at the hotel. This was one of the events that Tamara went to, was a fashion show, which was actually really cool. You know, Tamara is actually from Texas, so, you know, they handled her transportation to everywhere she went. At this particular fashion show, Beanie Man was there. A lot of interesting, cool fashion from Ghana, the Diaspora. Really, really dope event. And, and this is, a fashion show like any other, right? And so you really get a chance to see the what December has to offer in Ghana. So if you're at all interested in this and anything else Ghana has to offer, then go to edo.authenticafrican.com and sign up for your chance to enter for a chance to get to go there for free. You won't have to pay for your own flight. All right. All right. So guys, in the interest of time, we're going to end the live stream there. If you at all interested in that trip to Ghana, listen, if I was you, I'd sign up for it. I mean, I myself have gone to Ghana, of course, many times, and it was a game-changing experience for me. As someone who had been going to Sierra Leone often, I went to Sierra Leone 5 times before I first stepped foot in Ghana. And that was a different and another transformative experience for me. After going to Ghana, I moved almost exactly 12 months later. Now, I do not recommend that for other people. I recommend a process that you go through before you decide to make a move. I was in a different position. It was C-19, 2020. There was things going on in the world where things were shut down. Ghana was open. So I went to West Africa, and I ended up moving and staying on the continent for a little over 4 years, and now going back and forth 3 to 4 times a year to work on investments and to continue to build on what we're doing here. So I definitely recommend go to Ghana. It can be a transformative, life-changing experience for you. It definitely was for me, and I anticipate it will be for you. So go to ito.authenticafrican.com for your chance to enter. It's definitely going to be worth it if you're at all considering going to Ghana and you don't know how or who to go with or what to do when you get there. You have your opportunity to have your flight paid for, have your hotel paid for, 3 meals a day, and a number of different excursions daily. 5 days, 4 nights to really get a chance to experience Accra, Ghana. And then if you decide you want to stay longer on your own dime, you can do that too, right? Pay for your own hotel, stay longer. So you can actually turn it into a 2-week vacation, and 1 week of it covers everything. And then you can decide you want to do other things outside of Accra. You can spend more time there, which is what Tamara did, the guest who won last year's experience. So if you're at all thinking about going to Ghana, I definitely recommend heading over to the website that is scrolling across your screen right now to go. All right. So there's a couple people who still have comments about the earlier conversation. So I do want to acknowledge you guys really quickly before we go, just to make sure you guys get a chance for your thoughts to be heard. Afuya is planning to go to Ghana in January 2027. Nice. Definitely recommend it. Let's see. Mental OG says they have a spy division coming out of Ghana. They're posing as Black Americans and try to infiltrate the U.S. government. Okay, I've never heard that before. And I'm going to leave that out, the rest of what you're saying, because I don't even know if that makes sense. But here we go. Sony Cotton says, FBI, I thought they were for domestic intelligence and CIA was for international intelligence. At any rate, I'm really tired of this. Yeah, I think that is one of the things that I think is a question that people have a lot. The FBI is meant to operate on U.S. soil. CIA is meant to operate outside of the U.S. However, the FBI is seen in America as the highest level of policing in the United States, and they deal with counterterrorism in the United States. And so the CIA does not train in those same ways as the FBI does. And so I think when they're talking about outsourcing their systems, they usually use the FBI to do so in these instances. But I understand that question and that concern, and it makes sense. But I think in this instance, that would be the reason they would tell you as to why it is the FBI. And the CIA is actually more covert, right? If the CIA is in your country, you don't know it, right? Or the people don't know it, right? It's not. These aren't announcements that are made. So FBI is a little bit different, right? They're more overt, even though they do, investigations. If it's about training, the FBI is going to be loud and out there to let you know. Okay. All right. With that, I want to say thank you all for a very engaging conversation. As always, you guys always bring the knowledge, the consistency. Shaka Bars is on the live stream. Shaka, I would love to bring you on. I can't bring you on from Instagram though, because I'm using StreamYard. Let me see if I can get this to Shaka, see if we can get Shaka on the live stream. Now, Shaka, for sure, I would put Shaka on the live stream. No question. Let me see if I can get Shaka on the live stream. Guys, stay tuned. We might be able to get Shaka on. Let me see if I can get him on. Give me a second. That would be, if you guys aren't familiar with Shaka Bars, he is an activist, very knowledgeable about the continent. He also spends a good amount of time in Ghana. He's back and forth. You've probably seen him with I Show Speed and many more. Let me see if I could get this message to Shaka really quickly. Let's see. We'd love to have him on. All right, I'm gonna shoot him over this note. All right, let's see if we can get him on. If we can, cool. If not, it's all good. We'll get him on another time. So all right. So let's see if we can get him on. If we can, cool. In the meantime, so it says I got cut off. Did I? Sorry, when I was shooting that message out. Okay, there we go. We got Shaka Bars in the building.
But if I come on here like this, then my followers won't see it.
Yeah. True.
Just go in the normal live stream, then everybody would have come forward.
All right, cool. So guys, we're gonna jump over to regular live stream, and then we're gonna get Shaka on. So stay tuned, guys. So we're going right back on Instagram. So for those of you who are watching on YouTube, let's go over to Instagram, and I'm gonna get Shaka on. So I'll see you guys in a second.